Lastly, I want to do a bonus example, and this bonus example will be part of your attendance quiz the next day if you are taking this class on campus with me. So your bonus example says for the function f of x, first thing we need to do is sketch the graph. We need to plot at least 4 points and either label on the graph or list out to the side. So because I have this room right here, I'm going to list out to the side. Now, why am I doing this bonus example in this? Well, because in this lesson, we have learned how to do that change of base formula, or more specifically, how to use that alpha window feature. I can now graph logs with different bases other than natural log and common log. And up until this lesson, that's the only two logs I could graph because those were, again, the only two buttons on my calculator that I had. So let's put this into our y equals. We'll clear out everything else. So I'm going to go alpha window. We want number 5. And now I can type this in exactly the way it looks. We want log base 2 of x plus 5, get out of those parentheses, minus 3. Now I can see I have a standard graph here, so I'm going to do standard on mine as well. So I'm going to go zoom 6 for Z standard. And there is my graph. So I want to plot at least 4 points, and I'm going to label those points off here to the side. So I'm going to go second graph to get to my table. And I am going to do any value here that fits on this graph. So I'm going to, and I want whole numbers. So I'm going to do -4, -3. We want -3, -2. We've got -1, -1. Let's see what else we can do. 3, 0. Now that's all we really need since it says at least 4, but if I can fit another one, I want to, and I'm going to go ahead and write down 11, 1 as well. So these are my points that I'm going to plot. So we have 4, -3, and this one will just be slightly off my graph. Now, honestly, before I connect these, I want to go down here and talk about part B. It says, what is the equation of the vertical asymptote of this function? Add and label the vertical asymptote to your graph. We talked about this last lesson, but wherever you get that first error from is where your vertical asymptote is. So it's at x equals -5. So I usually use a highlighter, but I'm just going to use my pen here. So at x equals -5, I'm going to do this with dashed lines. So what is the equation? X equals -5. We need to add, and label the vertical asymptote on the graph. So this is at x equals -5. So now when I connect these points, I don't want to cross this line right here. So it's going to get closer and closer to it, but never touch it. So there is my graph. Now notice that my graph is going down forever because it's going to start hugging that vertical asymptote. When you look at your graph here, it looks like it starts right here, like more of like a square root, right? We need to know that that keeps going down. Your calculator is just doing the best it can, and it can't keep moving over without touching that line. And so it just kind of stops. Sometimes if we hit zoom decimal, so number 4, it will make it look more like it's going to keep going forever. But if you get to here, we know with the log, it does not have a starting point here. You need to know it either goes down forever or it might go up forever. Part C wants to know what is the x-intercept. Write this as an ordered pair. Well, where is it crossing this x-axis? Right here at 3, 0. And then we need to state the domain and range. Okay, so my domain is my x, and we go left to right. So as I go from left to right, the first thing I hit is that vertical asymptote at x equals -5. So that is parentheses, -5. And then it's going to go forever, so to infinity. So this is again, because of this vertical asymptote, that's again why we have a restriction on our domain when it comes to logs. And that's why we have to plug those back in, because if I happen to get something like x equals -8, well, no, that graph's not ever going to be over here, right? So we have a restriction on that domain. That's why we have to check those answers. And then your range goes from the bottom to the top. Bottom to the top, we're going to go arrow to arrow. My range will be -infinity to infinity. And as a little side note, this right here will always be my range for logs. Okay, so make sure you understand this right here. This is going to be your attendance quiz for the next class.